start the second discussion in platform Security in Information Field Gender Aspects. Запрошуємо модераторку другої дискусійної платформи Вікторію Сюмар, народну депутатку України, голову Комітету Верховної Ради України з питань свободи слова та інформаційної політики. Запрошуємо спікерок та спікерів дискусійної платформи Марі О'Хейген, головна радниця і старша директорка NDI в Україні. Юлія Лапутіна, полковник СБУ, заступниця начальника департаменту контррозвідувального захисту інтересів держави в інформаційній сфері. Олександр Богуцький, директор-президент телеканалу ICTV. Пітер Дуус-Ербен, старший директор АйФЕС Україна, старший міжнародний радник з виборів. Юрій Бутусов, головний редактор сайту Цензор.нет. Пані Вікторія, вам слово.
Thanks, dear colleagues. So, as the media, I would like to introduce you a little bit. Our discussion is extremely important, but we would like our panel to be a little bit more interactive and probably even provocative in a way. Because everything which was said in the first platform is right, but the informational zone is the reality we are living in, and this is the reality that is actually forming our mentality, which we've been discussing, because the mentality is the basics for everything. Many people have gathered together who are responsible for the information reality and information field, and I would like to represent our speakers.
Then I would like to say for the beginning, let us just, have a look aside. So because let's listen to the opinion from the side. So the evolution of different visions regarding the gender problematics in Ukraine was, the evolution was so fast. Once I've been to the United States and I had a meeting, I was too young, and it seemed to me that it was so perfect in Ukraine regarding equality of women, and there were women from Saudi Arabia and so on, and there was a question, what about the gender equality in your country? And then the women from Saudi Arabia, they said that they were just, fighting for the possibility to drive the cars, not to use the drivers, because the drivers, it's too complicated to have the men be the driver. It should be only relatives, etc. So for them, it's so complicated. And then I'm driving my car for the last 26 years, and it was not a big deal for me. So I've been thinking that there were no problem. But but when you are entering the men's society, and especially the political spaces, the space for men. So, Mrs. Kirashin told about the sample of the last harassment, and then, that the first impression would be not about what you are doing, but about your brochures, about your shoes, about other things. Then you're going to start to think, why it should be like that? Maybe it's something wrong with us. Why it should be the key things in the media space. So, and that is why it would be very interesting to me to listen to the first presenter, Mrs. Mary O'Hagan, Global Associate Senior President Director, Anti-Ukraine. So we would like to listen to your opinion, a kind of an opinion from a side. Do you see a progress? Where we go? What do you think, please?
Well, I'd like to start just by saying thank you very much to the organizers for the opportunity to be speaking here today. I think that this event on its own demonstrates the potential for gender equality to be fully realized in Ukraine. I think my answer to the moderator's question has to focus first and foremost on the threats to the information space that exist in Ukraine, and I'm going to refer particularly to Russia's role. Russia is trying to persuade people not only in Ukraine, but as Anna Maria Bildt said, in many parts of Europe, to believe that it's in their interest to turn back the clock of history. It's one of the leading edges of Russia's disinformation and propaganda campaign in Ukraine is to demonize the notion of gender equality and even the word gender itself. They want to ramp up fear of change. They want to promote intolerance. They want to exploit insecurity and to try, as I said, to persuade people that it's in their interest to move backwards. So I want to say a few words about what Ukrainian people actually think. And I think if we are more aware of what our friends and neighbors actually think, we are going to be better able to insulate ourselves against this kind of attack. Russia's goal is to prevent Ukraine from moving away from its sphere of influence. And the reason why gender equality and some other values-type issues are under attack is not about the issues themselves. It's about trying to persuade people that in some way, in some strange way, being closer to Europe is bad for you. And it works with a few people, but it doesn't work with the majority. There is very strong demand for greater equality between men and women in Ukraine. I'm about to demonstrate that. And that demand exists in the minds of men as well as women. The way most people lead their lives in Ukraine every day is simply not compatible with the idea that women should go back to their kitchens and stay there, that men should not take their role as fathers seriously. I'm afraid the way that Ukrainian people live is simply not compatible with the type of goal that Russia has. And this trend is so strong in Ukraine that when retrogressive messages are fired at people, which Russia is doing all the time, online, offline, directly, through proxies, all the time, and some of those messages are being picked up by domestic political actors, probably being unaware, as Anna Maria said, that if you pick up this agenda, you're doing Mr. Putin's work for him. But nevertheless, the resiliency of the Ukrainian people can be demonstrated by this slide. You can see that when we asked earlier on in Ukraine this year, nationwide survey, we asked how important, if at all, is equality between men and women to you. Major national survey, 77% said it's important, very important, or extremely important to me. And that's 81% of women and 73% of men. As was said in the previous panel, equality between men and women is not a women's issue. It's a whole society issue. And as was also said in the previous panel, if you want to translate demand like this into real political action, you will have to do something about the gender balance in political institutions. One more slide is about family life. This is two questions on the same slide. The blue bars tell you how people think things are working today, and the orange bars tell you how they think they should work in the future. The blue bar tells you that 40% of people say that men and women participate in family life equally, but the orange bar tells you that 71% of people think that men and women should participate in family life equally. There is an unmet demand for equality here that is very stark. And the final slide I'm going to show you is when we asked in 36 focus groups across southern and eastern Ukraine earlier this year, and these were people who are vulnerable to different types of Russian disinformation and propaganda. We asked them, first of all, what do you associate with Western values? By Western, I mean European, Euro-Atlantic values. What do you think European and transatlantic values are? And you can see freedom, prosperity, culture, democracy, equality, stability, family. But we also asked the same group, so what do you associate with Russian values? And you'll see that there's only one word that is large enough for you to read, and that word is nothing. Russia is trying to attack people's minds in Ukraine to undermine support for a move towards a more Western value-oriented life, which means equality for men and women, amongst other things. But they're doing it not from a position of strength, but a position of weakness. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your figures. For statistics, it's very important because it shows the direction for us where we go, and then it also shows the very sensitive issues. Well, from time to time, I just, read in the so-called women's magazines, and I can get the so-called recommendations, the recommendations which men should be married from our side. And the recommendation is to marry Scandinavian men because this is the equal opinion and equal opinions. Well, and then from the very specific funny things, I would like to move to the very serious issues. Well, we are on the way of the so-called very complicated period. Well, just, I passed this period through myself, and in February 2014, I became the Deputy Secretary of the Council of National Defense, and then, I got this, the idea to get the meeting what to do with Crimea and other things. Me as the liberal by opinion and the journalist by profession, I started to deal with the process of closing the Russian propaganda channels, etc. So it was a specific decision, very hard decision. So I'm very happy that we do have Colonel of the Security Service of Ukraine, the Deputy Head of the Department of Counterintelligence Protections of the State's Interests of the Information Sphere, Mrs. Julia Laputina. It's very important for us because, in fact, we are witnessing of so-called the specific the process of so-called water bordering in this ideology, and we are pushed from the so-called artificial values. And do we feel it in the eastern part of Ukraine? Do we feel these pushy things in the eastern part of Ukraine? What we're going to do with this? Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for this opportunity to have this event, to have this presentation. What I would like to say, my first gender trainer was my father. When I was a young kid, the young girl, I was trying to play the boys' game, so I was trying to reach the best results in sports, he told me, my father told me, you are the human being first, and then if you would like, you can reach what you want. That was a kind of a very specific from my father's support. And then I said that this is very important to have the family and the educational things. This is the main orientation and then the main milestones for us. So I've been to the many situations, and I found that in Ukraine, I got this opportunity to become the officer of the security service and the counterintelligence protection service, and that was in the year 1992. And all those officers who were working there, despite of all that lustration period of time, and they were found available to work, but mentally they were oriented for the so-called post-Soviet system and their values. And from that period of time, KGB of USSR, former USSR, they just watched, observed the activity of NGOs. And once I've heard, in Yalta, I've heard once in my life that the officer told me, this is the gender conference going to be in Yalta. You have to go and watch them because maybe it would be the threat for the safety of the country. So I've been to Yalta. So it was the 1993. That was Crimean Tatars returned back. A lot of Crimean Tatars women, they shared about a lot of problems dealing with they return home, and so we had also a lot of foreign experts, and I watched the very intelligent, very respectful lady of senior age with a perfect English language. And I was trying to watch her and her activity. And what she was trying to do, there was kind of a collecting the information. So well, she was trying to find out what about the situation, what are the status for Crimean Tatars, what's the attitude from the side of Ukrainian to the independence of Crimea Peninsula, and etc. So I've been reading a lot about her. So Vasilina Zarubina, she was the personal secretary of the former leader, Joseph Stalin. So, well, this person was a participant of Sudoplatov's group, those who were in the process of liquidating of our Ukrainian fighters, those who were fighting for independence. So, well, she came in the year 1993. You know, there is no ex. There is no ex professionals, even the former diplomat, she was a former diplomat, but she came just to collect the information on what's going on in Ukraine. So, well, and I said, guys, you're not watching on NGOs. That's the threats are in Russia, and the threats are from there. So, well, and Russia would do a lot just not to return the so-called freedom, or to give us the so-called freedom sailing process for us, the freedom life. And so, well, we didn't pay any attention. So I was the new KGB, but not KGB. I had no school of KGB and experience, but I was the new officer in the security service. So I had no experience, and I was trying to deal with this issue. And then in the year 2000, it was the very special doctrine from the side of the Russian Federation that they proclaimed the so-called collecting the empires back. So, well, and they were just trying to, and still they were trying to find the common enemies, Atlantism. This is the enemy. So, well, and we had the operative information from Crimea, from other regions about the threats, and there was provocative movements, the threats of annexation, etc. So, well, we're talking about them, and we understood that Russia would always trying to get Ukraine back in the sphere in this, and the concepts of national safety was very important. So, and that was legalization in Russia on the highest level to use the military forces. And, you know, when we are just reading the political and military doctrine, and we can read from them about the manipulations, so, well, and they are under the manipulations of the so-called soft power, and including Russian Orthodox Church. So, well, we can read that one of the priests, bishops, those who were actively working here, so now he escaped to Russia. So he says, the international law in reality should be followed only in the case when the country is in the so-called external leadership. What is the thesis about? That's the thesis is about promoting in the informational space. Well, let us talk about the gender theme. So, well, I think the bordering, so Russian world, Ruski mir, and that's a kind of already worked out the ideology. That's a kind of a basis, background, family values, they say. Traditional family values, traditional role of women in the family. You've seen this. Well, it works, and even in Ukraine it works. And then I know, what does it mean, traditional role of woman? You know, when I'm coming back home about 1 a.m., so honestly speaking, I am too far from cooking the food to my husband, of course, so he respects, well, this bordering out, this so-called specific things. What do you do at least? So, well, I want to say that in reality, the standards of the family values is so-called a kind of a manipulation. There is no standards at all. Well, they just, you know, are under the manipulation from the side of the pseudo-religious organization. And when we're just talking about the platform, they are just, you know, creating the communicative platforms. And we fixing that this is doing in the so-called in the space under control of the Russian Orthodox Church, and then even they are just making lots of events. They are inviting people for the traditional cooking process, and they say that the woman should be out of the initiatives, should be obedient, etc. So on, and this idea is going to the society and bringing inactivity position. So that's thank you, Julia. And so, well, the next presenter, Alexander Bogutsky. I have no idea how to ask Mr. Alexander Bogutsky. So, Olena Kondratyuk is your wife, and then she's an organizer of this very Congress, so I understand that equality in your family is quite okay. But I say to you what I've heard, Thesis, that this is the men's channel, TV channel, and this is the man's channel for man and men's. So that's what we're talking about right now. Could you tell us on the level of the editors and edition department, so well, do you have this equality? Shall we or do we pay our attentions on this equality? You're doing a lot of programs against the Russian propaganda, anti-zombie programs. So could you tell us about this pushing ideology of the traditional Russian world values? Thank you, Victoria. It was a very strong first panel, so and especially when we're talking about the very famous leaders, and the Deputy Minister of Defense from the United States also made a lot for us. So well, I think we're also impressed. And what I think during the period of war, the winners would be those who will be laughing a lot. If we still are winning the Russians' attempts, but it's still, we are active. So we understand, and they understand that next they would be them. And we're just talking about Ukraine. We can compare. We can say that we know where they will go there. So well, what we do, yeah. We do have 2 counter-propaganda TV programs, anti-zombie and civil defense. So well, after the conflict, I got a call from the Secretary of RNBO, and the first time in this year I got the call was this phrase: Sasha would like to greet this brave and fantastic men, those who are creating these programs, which are in great use for our military men in the eastern part of Ukraine. So, well, and Turchinov smiles quite really, and then Turchinov absolutely 100% believe that they is 100% right. He says, Alexander Valentyevich, I would like to say to you that this program is created by women, not men. He was trying to have breath a few times. And I want to say that the, deputies, Vika, as the member of the committee, Ira Hirashenko, other girls of us, Yulia, they are changing the attitudes to them. They are changing the attitudes towards the roles of women. And I, honestly speaking, about our family, we are in the list of sanctions, blacklist of the family. We are the only one family in this blacklist from Russia. So now I want to say I know another family, father and son, and I want to say that we are available to show the new culture of partnership in the family. Yura Lutsenko, that's a wonderful couple. They also in the blacklist, but not all. We are the only family, and so, and the first and a very important message, I really seriously think that we have to believe that we are partners. And if we are partners, we are European. If we believe that someone should take care of you or bring you shoes or something like that, this is very oriental Russian things, so well, it goes there. So we have to understand that it should be the respect towards women. So then we can say a lot about the different things. So what we have to do, what we can do, ICTV is not the men's channel. Since last year, we increased the number of the women's editorial lots, and that's very important. So we are the family of TV channels. We have males, women, females, kids, etc. That our establisher, the one of the organizers of this channel's family, Olena Pinchuk, also ladies Olena, and in this sense everything starts from yourself. Yes, we all, starting from ourselves, we can do a lot just to increase the numbers of women. So it should be not the problem of men, it should be the self-assuredness from the side of women. So Olena Frolak is the head of our edition department. So well, and all the leading positions are mainly filled with women. Why? Because I am following the principles of the equality in rights, equality over competition. So well, if it will be the same equality, then the women will be in the leading position. So well, why it happened? Because there's the history with men. And the men, they are like obstacles, and it should be better, and it should be the specific support from the side of the women, because they will make our country better. So well, and I think in the afternoon we're going to have the presentation and the speech from Mr. President. So it would be great that even the secretaries and supporters and others should be also women. So against us, we do have the great activity of the officers of the Russian army. They can present themselves, women, girls, etc., friendly communicators, etc. So well, and we have to be very attentive. And journalists is mainly girls' profession right now. So we have to understand that girls are reading a lot, working a lot, and they are even hard workers. They work even more than 8 hours. So well, they have lots of partnership relationships, etc. So well, America, France, Baltic Republic, and so then they have very strong characters, and then we all together, we can really win, and we will. And I understand that in Ukraine, this is the country where we do have the so beautiful, nice winners, ladies here in Ukraine, and I think we will win them. Thank you. I agree with you, and I would like to express a special thanks to the Olena Pinchuk's fund for this beautiful project. And I already told about the mentorship regarding the girls. That's very interesting projects. When women reached lots of successes in their lives, they are trying to prove that it's not so scary to move on and to work on your self-realization, and there is no unreachable tops of the mountains, and you have to believe in yourself. This is your main thesis when you've been talking about the quality. But we all, quite often, we're just, trying to destroy this belief, this faith. And then Russian propaganda is so active in this very sense. And then in the year 2014, when I was the deputy secretary of RNBO, I was reading a lot of Russian boards information against me, and it was gender harassment against me. And they were just, very bad gender things from them. So, well, they've never about my biography, etc. So we have to get rid of it. We have to get rid of this Russian virus, and we have to get rid of this virus, and we have to talk about this. And Yura Butusov is in charge of the internet agency. That's internet censornet website chief editor. So Darina Lidovskiy, you remember there was the situation when Darina wanted to become the member of parliament. What was the action from the journalists? So, well, at first they just trying to analyze the Facebook's page. Well, she's very beautiful, but the journalists found the picture in the underwear in the swimming suit. So, well, she's a lawyer. She works actively in the party, so she has a lots of reasons to be in the list. And then they started the hype and then scandal. Who is going to enter the parliament? This lady, and they just post the picture of the lady with the swimming suit. So Darina didn't join the parliament for that period. She was pregnant for that moment, and then she refused to resist to all of that harassment, and instead of her, the young boy entered to the parliament, and no one even answered about himself. And this is what we do. We do by ourselves. Even this is our fault from journalists. What do you think? Why this trend is still active? Thank you. So first of all, I would like to express the special thanks to the organizers to have this opportunity to talk. This is one of the most positive places in the city of Kyiv today. Thank you. So, I've been living in the gender equality. So what I do understand that maybe it's a mistake, because as the father of 3 daughters, I am absolutely understand that even it's not equality, it's the advantages. It's a privilege to be a woman. And in the modern world, women, they have the leading position. And for me, the issue of gender equality and the issue of feminism is not the problem, or a very complicated problem. It's just the problem of the development of the human potentials of the country as it is. I can say it's like that. So, well, it's the problem of the human rights as it is. I have no mention about the systematic violation of the human rights of women in Ukraine, but I can say all men, those who are leaders, those who are managing the different structures, even the military structures, those who are limiting the rights of women, they become less competition available compared to other commercial enterprises, etc. So, well, they are less successful, by the way. And I understand now that in the modern world now, the intellectual potentials and ready to be successful in competition, that means the equal possibility for everyone, for handicapped, disabled, to other people, to women, men, and I think the gender equality, I don't believe in the equality, but I understand that it should be the equality of the opportunities. It should be the equal access to self-development and self-realization process. Well, we do have lots of problems in these fields, not only among women, but among men too. Men are too far. They don't have abilities to organize that beautiful Congress like we have now. So, and I think men should be reasonable and understandable. So, well, Yuri, I would like to find out what I want to say and to give you the concrete answer. We are living in the new competition information surrounding. And if some candidates to the deputy position would, for example, post the photograph in the swimming suits, relaxing somewhere on the beach, so it should be also a scandal, or it could be a scandal, or maybe funny photoshops. It could be really dealing with these pictures. And I think the inertia of way of thinking among men, not among them, not among everyone, but the passive understanding, it's the less of understanding of labor resources, intellectual possibilities, etc. So you can get a lot of possibilities, a lot of abilities from women. But right now, during the revolution and during this war, I want to say that there is a great encouragement from women, this leading position, and it's also, it brings the possibilities for us for defense. And so I know that the commanders of military departments or armies, some other services agencies, they can say unofficially that the women should not be accepted for the military service. So they say that it's so hard for them to deal with this military service, and it's limitation of it, and it should not be like that. But it's for temporary, and so it doesn't matter the limitations or not. But the women will become more competitors, more efficient, and more fighter. So there is no problems in the information space. And there is no problem about the specific attitudes.
Атакують однаково і чоловіків, і жінок.
Have the same information attacks both on women and men and people with special needs. I do agree that there is a big issue with the lack of understanding of our civil rights, the lack of rules of communication within the society, within the state, the low level of the general development for the mass media, including into this trend. So this is the general trend of the underestimating human capacity. And if to talk about the necessity of using this in the information war with Russia, the using of gender equality issue, that I would say that any steps directed toward the civil society development, whether it is the having of the Congress or adoption of any kind of law that would protect or at least give the clear understanding of rights for some social groups, any group, men, women, anything which is directed towards civil society development, this is a step towards the protection of Ukraine. This is our advantage over our enemy, the Russian Federation, where you know that civil society is neglected and oppressed, and you know that the state actually even sometimes said that there is no civil society at all there. So anything directed to civil society becoming more and more organized, more effective in terms of influencing the power and cooperation and the protection of every member of the society. This is our step to construction the modern society, more competitive, which could compete with the Western society at the equal sets, and this is the way to our victory. Thank you very much, Yuri. But still, I'm not very convenient moderator, and I would like to ask questions all the time because originally I'm the journalist. So let us calculate for ourselves. So about how many women in their context of working in the Verkhovna Rada, we have publications about their shoes, their accessories, their dresses, their bags, in comparison to the amount of draft legislation done, and how many publications is written about men's suits, men's shoes, and men's bags. And the difference would be immense, because when you are interested as a member of parliament only because of your shoes, despite the fact that you are the author of 40 draft laws, I feel it myself, and I think this is the task for the editory and for the editors-in-chief to discuss this. I would disagree, because politician is a public job. If the person goes to this public job, you should be ready to the thing that when you say whatever you say, or whatever you put on you, this will be the attention from the mass media. This is a part of the job. If you don't want such kind of attention to your beauty and to your accessory, maybe you shouldn't go to the public administration altogether. Oh, I would like to say, we will have the discussion about this. So, men which are putting on some expensive watches or some jewelry. I don't know the example that man puts on. Like 2 days ago, the candidate of president Oleg Lashko appeared on one of the meetings in the Rolex watch that is cost the same amount of money as his annual salary is, and it was that something which attracted the attention of mass media, and they showed this watch. Every media showed it, and I think this is normal situation, regular situation. So when you came with this accessory, okay, I have to interrupt Yuri because he is very resilient and he is not going to accept that the editor-in-chief should have the right not only go there, but also some particular state of mind. If the woman, I don't know, you should make some reports about Verkhovna Rada, about the legislation they adopt, but at the same moment when you write about shoes, because we in news, I'm criticizing you here, I'm reading your website, but in our news, we forbid to talk about this, not because we neglect the watches and the shoes, because all these make us distant from the essence of reforms, the essence of discussion, and the essence of choice. This is populism, that the woman has no right to make photos in swimming suits. This is a complicated issue. So when you put on your swimming suit, take a photo and put it on the Instagram, probably you should also fight it. But editor-in-chief could have made the decision and do not publish this. Try this, yeah, take some efforts. I would like to say that we never write about Victoria's accessories or Ledovskих swimming suits. We don't use such kind of news. Okay, friends, there is a freedom of speech in Ukraine. And I respect, we don't use such kind of information about jewelry. You won't see it at Censornet about such things. I'm not given such kind of task, but I do respect the right of the journalists to ask questions on any occasion and attract attention to the way how they are dressed. And this is not the question for the gender. This is a question that the politicians should be transparent. I agree with you equally, because there shouldn't be. Irina Lutsenko wants to ask the question. Dear colleagues, I cannot agree with our presenter, because last year I was said to be one of the most effective members of parliament, and I am also very actively discussed in the mass media, not because of the number of laws and their quality, for example, for domestic violence criminalization, or the mechanism fighting domestic violence and violence against women, not about the laws which brought back 3 billion of support paid to children, but according to the posts, what am I putting on, my clothes, my shoes, and they don't observe my tax declaration. Thank you. Recently, with Ms. Irina, we had a very big interview that concerned not her appearance, but her political activity, and it was a great report. But I would like to underline one more time, this is a freedom of speech, this is the value sorry, but when the member of parliament is wearing some kind of jewelry, the journalist has the right to ask the question, how much does it cost? And it doesn't reflect in the gender. The same applies to the men's suits, but I haven't seen such. Okay, let's finish the topic. And we've enlivened the audience, a lot of emotions in the audience. It means that the problem exists. If there is a discussion, it means that the problem exists, and discussion is a way to solve this issue. Okay, let's move on. A little bit of story from my life. On occasion, I was not very interested in gender equality, so I came to Gender Forum, which took part in Armenia. And it was, I don't know why I got there, among Caucasian women, and it was a real gender forum discussing the election laws. And we had a couple of members of parliament from the parliament of Germany, and one of these members of parliament from Georgia, Armenia, and Azerbaijan. And the first thing that I've noticed that this is the huge difference to observe modern European lady and modern Caucasian lady when she starts, thanks for my husband, thanks to my family for the opportunity to be here today. They allowed me to do my job and my activity, and it was for me a shock, because I think Ukraine in this sense is closer to Western mentality, I guess. But still, what concerns the participation of women in politics, we've started this conversation already. Is there a wall from the men's side? I do feel that there is a kind of wall. I don't know the origin of this phenomenon. Probably psychologists should observe this, but objectively there is a wall. I've seen how they are making lists. They just throw the resumes for the lady. Okay, have a look at this resume. Whom do you like most? Whose photo is better? Yeah, who is the most attractive? Let's take this one from our regional departments. And what is happening now at the elections? When the leader of the competitions is all the time, I would say, he is mocked because of her gender, it's not given any advantages to the Ukrainian informational field and society that actually perceives this information. But all in all, it basically works for the candidate because it provokes disgrace for those people who publish this. So we have today with us Peter Dus-Erben, Country Director, IFS Ukraine, and Senior Global Electoral Advisor. Can you give a piece of advice for us how to break through this wall and more women in Ukrainian parliament, not 14%, but more of women, professionals, effective, who can move the European reforms?
Hello, everyone. Thank you very much, moderator. I'm truly honored to have this opportunity today. I am a male champion for gender equality and have traveled globally as such for many, many years. I in fact wish that around the world we had done a whole lot better than we have so far. I'm also blessed to live in Kiev and be married for many, many years to a strong, wise Ukrainian woman. I passionately believe that Ukrainian women, if better politically represented, would accelerate reform and further improve society for all of our families. Ukrainian parliament has passed a number of important international instruments and laws aimed to prevent and combat discrimination against women in public life. However, daily life is still different than what is said in legislation. Today, I'd like to share a few thoughts on how to increase women's political influence and to examine the issue of violence and harassment against women in online political space, which is rampant in Ukraine. Ukrainian women face direct and indirect discrimination in business, social and political life. gender stereotypes remain widespread in Ukrainian media and society, as I think we have just heard on this panel. These problems are also rooted in poor women representation in parliament and in local councils. The share of women in Ukrainian parliament is indeed one of the lowest in the region and in the world. Currently, if we calculate women in seats in parliament, it's 11.8%, placing Ukraine at the 147th position out of the 119 democracy that we would compare to. We can do better. It is obvious that parliament with such a low share of women could better present, with a higher share of women could better present, uphold, and protect women's rights. Therefore, addressing the issue discussed today must include measures aimed to increase the share of women in parliament. In 2014, a group of legislators registered a draft law in parliament which aimed to increase women's representation in elected office, both at national and at local levels. However, this women's quota, without a zipper rule, is quite unlikely to increase the current share, which runs at 11.8. Since 2014, Parliament has indeed failed to take any serious steps in addressing this issue, or any other electoral reform issue for that sake. Parliament and women MPs should consider significantly strengthening previous initiatives with an updated gender measure in law, which would be in line with the European goals and international standards of today. In 2017, IFES, in partnership with a range of friends, prepared a robust draft law aimed to include a 20% enforceable women quota, which is the same as 40% of the proportional seats of parliament, combined with a real zipper and meaningful sanctions for non-compliance of political parties. We call on all of you to demand such a measure and finally see Ukraine better represented by both genders. Furthermore, it's essential to address the issue of violence and harassment against women in politics in Ukraine. Such violence silences women's voices and obstructs them from exercising their civic and political rights. IFES has recently completed research to document such violence in online spaces here in Ukraine as a part of a global study that we're conducting. Our research tracks the volume, intensity, and speed of hateful, aggressive, and degrading rhetoric against women in politics. Looking at nearly 200 key individuals over the course of 4 years, analyzing over 1.2 million data points, we found that politically engaged women in Ukraine experience as much as 40% more degrading and violent online speak regarding their personal and moral integrity, intelligence, or how they appear. Women also experienced highly intense physical threats and high levels of sexually demeaning online attacks. We should do better. Such violence and harassment, also online, has recently been recognized as a human rights violation by the United Nations. We here today must highlight the negative impact and take firm steps against this. And this must include immediate steps by Ukraine's political elites to ratify the Istanbul Convention on preventing and combating violence against women and domestic violence. Thank you. A genuine sign of commitment by the men of Ukraine. In closing, women in Ukraine deserve better levels of representation in elected office to be able to effectively address the issues that we're discussing today. This can best be achieved if men and women stand together. Sitting here as a man today, I call upon more men in Ukraine to become male champions for gender equality and join this movement towards gender equality in Ukraine politics and in life in general. Thank you.
Thank you, and I think it's a kind of a call for everyone, for majority of us. So, well, dear colleagues, we have 10 minutes left for Q&A. So, well, we know that there are microphones in use, so let's start from this very side of the audience. So, well, Mrs. Victoria, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, and I would like, in the context of our panel discussion, I would like to say that about the threats of the informational security, we have the disinformation campaign. So we're talking right now that there are lots of false calls that the gender ideology is a threat for the family values and for the development of Ukraine and the oblast level. In the local councils and there is a lobbying, specific lobbying ideas as for the supporting the family values. Those family values which are in the resistance to the gender equality. And the first is regarding the so-called moral values. And the main text is about feminism, that feminism, sexism, racism, gender equality, and the gender identity, all the above-mentioned words are the threats to be harmful for the society, Ukrainian society. So, well, and I would like to say that I'm so sorry that the majority of the the misunderstanding, because of the misunderstanding of the terminology, lots of regional councils, they support this, and would like to call to the activists, please do not let us support this. So we have to stop this anti-gender movement. So, well, Mrs. Victoria, we ask you to resist this anti-gender movements, ultra-rights movements, those who are destroying not only the democratic values of Ukraine, but also the steps of Ukraine towards to the European vector. So, well, we created this specific letter to the head of the committee, and we kindly ask the participants to sign it. So, well, and today we've been talking a lot about the foreign bullying and about the bullying in our country against ladies politicians. And I want to say that there is no women suffering from all that things. We have a lot of stories like that. So, well, dear friends, we would like to express special thanks to the deputies. Thank you for the deputy heads of the committees, international organizations. I thank you all, because we are becoming to be a so powerful battalion, and we wish you success in this movement for gender equality. Thank you so much. Thank you. I'm not the person who is not supporting the gender equality. I'm supporting the gender equality. So, well, this is our things in my life, and my life is just to for a self-made process. So, well, I'm a self-made person. So, well, I think we have lots of women like that. So you're so cool. You're cool in your spheres, in your business, etc. We know lots of successful girls from public sector, and I really would like to say that security services also collecting the information about the message we got from this very respectful lady. So, well, I think the monitoring regarding the threats, yeah, we're doing this monitoring. I want to say that we have to be together very powerful. We have to be partners, society and the state, and including the gender equality issue. So, well, the representative of women in this public sphere is also the issue of the national security. So, well, on the level of the Russian Federations, the women's archetype to be publicly placed, it's a kind of a very destructive things for them to collect the leftovers from the Russian Empire. So, well, we have to be very specific in understanding this thing. So, well, I love this thesis. Could you send me, and Mary, please, you.
Just one word in response to this very important comment. I think for anyone who's up against an initiative of that kind, the first thing you can say to a councillor who is proposing such an initiative, or those who are planning to vote for it, is this does not represent the wishes of the Ukrainian people. The survey that I showed you a few slides from is on the website of the Office of the Vice Prime Minister. You can all download it. I think we've got a few copies available here as well. Point out to people they are not representing the interests of Ukrainian society when they make that argument. They claim they are, but in fact they're not. And the second thing you can point out is that the only interest they are serving, it's not Ukrainian society, it's Mr. Putin.
Так, дякую дуже, пані ось.
Thank you so much. And you, please. Good afternoon. My name is Chechena Olga. I'm the deputy of the Kharkiv's Council, and also I'm advisor of the gender issues. And I also am very thankful that we have this second Ukrainian Women's Congress. It's a kind of an instrument to uprise the quality of life. So, well, we have 20% in the Kharkiv Council of Women, and I also won based on the women's quote. So I'm very thankful for FS Ukraine. So, but among all the we have a lots of percentage of the internally displaced people. IDPs, they have to have more rights for votes, and based on the first results, we do have about 80% of the IDPs. In Kharkiv, it's about 160,000 IDPs. They don't want to return to the location where they live. They want to realize their potentials in the community. I mean, in Kharkiv, for example, in the Verkhovna Rada, we just registered the project 6240, and I want to ask our parliamentarians to have this discussion on this draft law. And we want to have the rights to vote among the IDPs. So well, about 62% of them are women. So Peter, would you like to comment something about this?
Yes, I fully support what was just said. It is the opportunity for the parliament to pass this amendment, which has long been registered, and it's long overdue to give IDPs the opportunity to fully vote in Ukraine. And that obviously include a very, very large group of women who currently do not have their full voting rights, neither in the parliamentary nor in the local elections. So 6240 must be taken up in parliament and must be passed.
Дякую, Пітере. 0-0-0 в нас на.
Thank you so much. We have 0-0-0. That's the scheduling. We're stopping, but the discussion is not stopping because we will continue. So well, I'm very active, and we were so active, and we are so active. It means that we will be active just to solve all the problems. So believe in yourself, and thank you, everybody. Thank you so much.
Фотографії на сцені. Просимо вас залишитись на сцені для спільної фотографії. Шановні пані та панове, оголошується перерва на обід до 13 години 45 хвилин. Звертаємо вашу увагу, обід на другому поверсі. Прохання залишити навушники синхронного перекладу на місцях.